wake up every day saying, how can we make this show better than the day before? Because we're lead pipe wielding professionals.
This is the Rich Eisen Show.
That's the name of it.
What? Hello?
Live from the Rich Eisen Show studio in Los Angeles.
Hey, Carmen, you there?
Oh, Rich, love you.
I love you too, Carmen.
No, don't worry, love you. Brock, Del Tufo, what's up?
Carmen,
Hey, Carmen.
talk to us.
TJ, my brother from another mother, love you.
Today's guests. From NBC Sports Men in Blazers, Roger Bennett, SEC Commissioner Greg Sankey, plus actor Kevin Bacon. And now, it's Rich Eisen.
All righty, everybody. Hey, everybody. We're back here on NBCSN for another week of fun, good times. We are live from Los Angeles, California. I hope everybody had a high-quality Father's Day weekend. We were off on Friday, and we're back here today, and we're thrilled to be here. Good to see you, Chris Brockman.
Hey, bud,
good
what's
to
happening,
see you,
man?
Mike Del Tufo.
Good to see you, Rich.
And good to see everybody. We'd love to hear from you at 844-204-RICH. That's a number to dial over the next 3 hours of this program. We've got, as we always like to tout and let you know about, a high-quality guest list that you can also follow on our YouTube stream, youtube.com/Rich Eisen Show. Also, if you're driving around and you want to listen to us, Sirius XM Channel 211. First up is going to be Mike Florio of Pro Football Talk, the founder of Pro Football Talk, coming up in about 19 minutes' time. Roger Bennett, my fellow follically challenged friend from Men in Blazers. And it's great to see the Premier League and to see the sport of football, as the rest of the world calls it, back in action. Roger will be joining us at the top of our second hour. And then talk about a newsmaker, the commissioner of the Southeast Conference. And I'll tell you what, Greg Sankey is right at the forefront of so much. Will there be a football season? So much of a question mark involved with that. It is also of interest that the commissioner of the SEC, when we went off the air, I believe on Thursday, issued a statement from the SEC that it is time that the state of Mississippi change its flag. There is, as we all know, a conversation, certainly in the southeast part of this country, about the Confederate flag and whether it should be involved in any way, shape, or form in our sports world. And Greg Sankey said that unless the state of Mississippi changes its flag, there will be no championships bestowed upon either of these members of the SEC from the state of Mississippi, and of course Mississippi State. So Ole Miss and Mississippi State right there front and center on that front. And news coming from Alabama yesterday. And when we're off the air, the race that was postponed yesterday from the world of NASCAR at Talladega will go down in the rain-delayed of Sunday. There will be a flag waving in Talladega, and outside of Talladega, it was the Confederate flag. And we did see some fans waving it and displaying it. This is the first NASCAR race where fans are allowed up to 50,000. So the first test of what NASCAR put out, that there will be no fans allowed at their facilities and their races waving the Confederate flag. The individual who is also at the forefront of that, pushing for NASCAR to make such a change, is the individual who put the words Black Lives Matter on the Richard Petty 43 car. That'd be Bubba Wallace, the only African-American person of color who is racing on the Elite Cup Series tour. And apparently somebody thought it was funny or important or crucial or soothing, which is, in my mind, one of the worst possible reasons for this. Left a noose in the garage of the 43 car. So what's the point? Watch your back, Bubba? What's your point? That taking a stand against a symbol of hate which the Confederate flag is. People say it is a piece of their heritage and history that involves the Confederate Army, which fought for enslaved and lasted for all of 5 years. That heritage. That what? Watch your back because you're at the forefront of all this. A heinous, reprehensible, and vicious act. And I'll tell you what, certainly with everything going on in COVID-19, as you can see the NASCAR statement on the screen, which was appropriately worded. I'll tell you what, in the world of COVID-19 especially, you can't get around there without credentials. So whoever did, I don't think it's going to take too long to find this individual. That individual in the world of NASCAR and out this individual as a scurrilous individual. I can't believe we're talking about this in 2020. People feel so comfortable to do such a thing. So, unfortunate is a word that's too light for it. I think I used every other word that I could throw at it. Heinous, reprehensible, scurrilous.
It's just sickening.
It is sickening, Chris.
That was my first response when reading about it last night.
And everyone should rally around this sport for trying to root it out. And rally around Bubba Wallace. And athletes like LeBron James were tweeting about this, and Bubba Wallace putting out a statement yesterday calling it a despicable act of racism and hatred and a painful reminder. And him saying that the sport has made a commitment to driving real change and championing a community that is accepting and welcoming of everyone. Nothing is more important and will not be deterred by the reprehensible actions of those who seek to spread hate. As my mother told me today, they are just trying to scare you. This will not break me. I will not give in, nor will I back down. Good for you, Bubba Wallace. You keep proudly standing for what you believe in, and all of us here at this show will do the same. And I know it's, I don't want to rain on anybody's parade, but this is the real world that we're talking about right here, and it keeps on piercing the sports bubble that we want to recreate, and the NBA is trying to recreate. But a PGA Tour member, and Nick Watney, tested positive for coronavirus this weekend. The PGA Tour continued on. Webb Simpson, congratulations to him for winning in Hilton Head in South Carolina. Did you hear what Justin Thomas called the area? What he was walking around? He called it a zoo. Walked around saying that nobody is practicing social distancing. It is a full-on, as if the pandemic doesn't exist. I'll tell this one more time to everybody. I'll probably repeat it. What am I talking about? But I'll just say it here. If you want sports back, wear a mask. If you want to protect somebody you love, wear a mask. You try to protect yourself, wear a mask. It's not a political statement. It's absurd. It's absurd. Just take a look at the other societies that are wearing masks and don't politicize masks and how they're faring. You want sports back this fall? You want sports to come back this fall and not get interrupted and then shut down? You want sports? We all do. Wear a mask.
Seems pretty simple.
I mean, it's kind of that simple. It's a piece of cloth. Put it over your face.
Yeah.
It's uncomfortable, yes. It's the least we can do. It's the least anybody can do. You're walking around in a public spot. You walk past me, I'll put on a mask. You should do the same. It's simple. You want sports back? We all do. 23 members of the Clemson football program tests positive. We heard about the Cowboys, the Texans testing positive en masse. Hospitalizations are down, knock on wood. Hopefully the therapeutics can knock this thing from a hospitalization to a home stay, just like the regular flu, which this is not. And all eyes will be on golf. All eyes will be on golf to see how they handle this. And you know, they removed Watney and his caddy, and then another caddy who was rooming with Watney's caddy, and we'll see how they can move on. And this is why we're watching sports, not just to lose ourselves, but also to see how they're going to handle this. Let's see how they handle it and how other sports can learn from it. The NFL putting out a memo reiterating for training camp what they were, and for the playing season that's upcoming, what they were putting in place for when players are coming back into facilities. Mike Del Tufo, you were ahead of your time pre-pandemic for your 50th birthday party. You gave out 3 laminates to your friends, different levels, different tiers.
I'm always thinking ahead.
The
Rich,
people the people that were most special to you got to the top floor VIP, correct?
Laminate.
The third floor had a laminate to get to the third floor VIP.
Yep.
The people that you liked, you wanted to invite to your party, but didn't want to, be up on the top floor because you wanted a nice, close-knit group of people the closest to you. You also wanted them to have a good time. You gave them a second floor access. They had their own laminate. When they tried to get to the upstairs, they were stopped. Somebody was stopped.
Yep.
First floor was for anybody.
Well, they had their laminate too.
They had a laminate too.
A wristband.
They had a little wristband. You toss them a wristband. See, you were ahead of your time. 3 tiers of individuals. Tier 1 is everybody that's close, the players, and anybody's got to be close to them. Tier 2 is anybody else who needs, on occasion, some access to those Tier 1 folks. Tier 3 people are everybody else who runs the operations that don't necessarily need Tier 1 access. And if Tier 1 and Tier 2 can't be specifically allowed in their own entrance, you've got to create one, essentially. That's basically it. Or you got to stagger the times when people come in, and so on and so forth. I don't know how the hell they're going to pull it off. I just know that they've got to. I want them to. The whole country wants to. Because we want to lose ourselves in stuff like Dak Prescott. People like Dak Prescott and what they're talking about Dak. So let's lose ourselves for a bit in this. Shall we?
Let's do it.
I love Dak. And normally when you make a statement like this in a show like this one, where there's conversations and you call in at 844-204-RICH and we have a conversation, you want to pound the table and I take one side, you take another side. There's no such thing as nuance. Not here on this show.
Split screen.
I love Dak. Normally on a show like this one, when I make a statement like that, there's got to be a but. There's no but. One of the most remarkable things about Dak Prescott, Chris Brockman, if I gave you an opportunity on March 18th,
Ooh, March 18th.
March 18th.
Wow,
Things
were so different
on a
back
March
then.
18th. No, but I told you, if I gave you an opportunity on March 18th to sign a piece of paper and make sure you earn yourself in that very same calendar year $31 million plus.
Where do I say? Where's the pen?
Would you wait until June 22nd to actually sign that piece of paper?
No.
Talk about restraint.
No.
My gosh.
Nope.
Good Lord. Here's a piece of paper. You put your name on it. You put your John Hancock, your Chris Brockman, your Dak Prescott on it, and you earned $31.4 million. You say, you know what? I'm going to hold. That's like that scene from Braveheart. Hold. The horses are coming. Hold. The horses, however, are coming with a bag of cash, $31 million, and you're saying, hold on a second. Apparently, he's going to sign it today.
Oh.
That's the word on the streets of the National Football League. Everybody reporting that yesterday. And Dak Prescott, when he signs the $31.4 million, will be officially stamped in so many people's minds. What they've been talking about since that piece of paper was placed in front of Dak Prescott is one of the most overrated, overpaid quarterbacks in the National Football League.
Would you rather have him or Kirk Cousins?
I would definitely play this game with you right now.
Great. I'm going to put it on the poll.
No.
Oh.
You could do that. Put it on a poll. Fine. That's great. But I'll play that game with you right now. I'd take him over every quarterback in the NFC East right now. I'll take him over Wentz. I'll take him over Daniel Jones. I will take him over whoever the Washington Redskins put on the field.
I mean, Carson Wentz was MVP.
I will take him. I will take Dak Prescott over Carson Wentz right now.
Wow.
I'll do it.
Okay.
I'll take him over Kirk Cousins.
Okay.
I'll take him over Kirk. I would take him over
Russell Wilson?
No.
Jimmy Garoppolo?
I'd have to think about it.
Jared Goff?
Now you're kind of. I will say yes. If I was so sure about taking him over Wentz
and Kirk Cousins.
How about
Kyler Murray?
I would take Kyler Murray over Dak right now.
Ooh.
That's a hot take.
That's pretty hot. You want to
That's a
grab the
hot
plank?
take.
That's pretty
You
hot.
made that- that's a
I
hot
said
take.
I said Kyler Murray was going to finish top 3 or 5 in the MVP race in
I think
2020.
he said top 3.
Uh-huh. He's an argument. I'd take him over Phillip Rivers right now.
Okay.
Wouldn't you?
Okay, I'll
Would
give
you
you
take Dak over Phillip?
I'll give you that.
I would.
Would you take him over Ryan Tannehill? I would.
Yep.
Yeah, I'd give you
Okay.
that.
Yep.
Would you take him over any quarterback the Jacksonville Jaguars put out on the field?
Are they going to put Cam Newton on the field?
They are not putting Cam Newton on the
Then
field.
I'll take Dak Prescott.
I would not take him over Deshaun Watson. Would you
No.
take him over Joe Burrow? I would take him over Joe Burrow right
Yep.
now.
I need to see
Yeah.
what Joe looks like in the
Okay.
NFL.
Would you take him over Baker Mayfield right now? I sure would.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. Would you take him over Ben Roethlisberger right now?
Well, Ben hasn't played in a year.
I'd
he,
take him
he
over.
does look thin.
I would take him over.
I would take him
Ben
over. I'd take him over.
Roethlisberger
I'd take
right
him
now.
over, Ben. I'd take
You
him
would
over.
not
I
take
agree.
him over Lamar Jackson.
No.
Would you take him over Tua/Ryan Fitzpatrick, whose beard matches the same shape as his head? I would.
Yep.
Would you take him over Sam Darnold right now? I will look this.
I would.
I will look in the camera. I would take Dak Prescott over Sam Darnold right now. I'd swap him out right now. Would you take him over Josh Allen? Would you take him over Stid? You'd take him over right now, Stid.
He would take.
You'd put
he would
Dak
take me over
Prescott. You
Stid.
would take Dak Prescott. You would tell Robert Kraft, you're just as rich as Jerry Jones. You pay him $31 million.
Jerry
You would
Jones.
take Dak Prescott as the quarterback of your team right now in a million percentage.
He would take Chris
In a
Brockman
million,
over Dak.
Hold on.
a million times out of a
Dak
million.
wears number 4, right?
Yes.
Mike Reese tweeted out the Patriots 4 the new jerseys with
Yes.
Stidham on the back.
Okay, stop.
They look pretty good.
I think you're getting my point here.
Yeah, no, Dak's
No.
top 10.
Would you
for
take
sure.
him over Derek Carr? I would.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'd take him over
Would you
Derek
take him over Tyrod Taylor and Justin Herbert? Yes. Would you take him over? Let's keep going here.
Well, who-
I mean,
who
nobody in
wouldn't
the.
you
Would you
take?
take him over Teddy Bridgewater? I would.
Yep.
Would you take him over Matt Ryan? I wouldn't take him over either Matt Stafford or Ryan.
Yeah, or Tom Brady, or Lamar
Lamar
Jackson,
Jackson,
Deshaun Watson. I think
Watson.
Dak is top 10. He's in that.
Yes.
He's top 10.
He's in that 8, 9, 10
So then
range.
why is he overpaid? Because what happened last year? They had the best team without a doubt in the NFC East, and they blew it. Boy, did they blow it!
Yeah.
The number of times that they played down to their competition, you can't even fathom, and you blame it on the quarterback, even though the coach, now that he's gone.
Can't blame
I
him.
wonder if people would think Dak would be rightly paid if Garrett was still there to blame for everything that happened last year. Honestly.
Yeah, good question.
But what does it all mean? Because I'll tell you this, and I know Mike Florio is going to talk about this because I'll ask him. But Jerry Jones better lock him up, because if he's franchised again next year, which would happen, that goes up to $37 million, and it looks like the cap could be less unless there's some deal that gets made between the Players Association and the NFL to reconfigure the formula that configures the cap, because it does look like revenues could go down this year, which you never thought would ever happen, but COVID-19 does some strange things, clearly. And that would wipe out the Cowboys' cap if Dak costs more and they have less pie in which to pay him. So there's that conversation that we'll have with Mike Florio. Roger Bennett will be a great conversation with him. We'll see what news Greg Sankey wants to make. Oh, yes, and by the way, we can figure out how they're connected to Kevin Bacon. There's 1 degree. They're on the Rich Eisen Show. Who do we miss? Well, we didn't even mention Mahomes for a reason.
No.
You take him over Drew Lock? You take him over Drew Lock?
Oh, yeah.
Dak
I mean,
Prescott.
we,
Okay,
don't,
so-
we don't know what Drew Lock is.
Correct. I take that Dak over Sam
He's like a
Darnold.
top 8. Top 7, top 8. Right? Can you find... I don't know if you can find 8.
You could technically even
Lamar,
make...
Lamar Jackson.
Lamar.
Ben Roethlisberger is probably 50-50.
Right? Brady.
Deshaun Watson. I'm just running down the list. Deshaun Watson, Mahomes. Carson Wentz, I think, is 50-50. Rodgers. Cousins, 50-50. Stafford.
Yeah, he's 8.
Drew Brees.
You could even make the case you're taking over Drew Brees. Drew Brees is going to be sitting on the NBC in the booth calling Notre Dame games
40,
next year.
41.
right?
Matt
He's
Ryan,
top
Matt
eight.
Ryan, Tom
Top
Brady,
7, top 8.
Russell Wilson. You don't take him over. So you said you would take Kyler Murray though. It's kind of a hot take.
Yeah, that's a hot take, Rich.
Oh, man.
That's a hot one.
Dude. Kyler Murray. Kyler Murray could be in the same conversation as Lamar Jackson at this point next year. I know.
Is that the
On the
sizzle?
It's sizzling.
On the cover of
flipping it.
Madden. Not saying fresh off a 1 seed, but DeAndre Hopkins showed up there. By the way, Larry Fitzgerald is not
know.
retired. By the way,
No.
Kenyon Drake made everybody forget about David Johnson, who's gone. By the way,
West.
Isaiah Simmons is going to flip the field a couple times. By the
NFC
way,
West becoming a
All right.
power.
Which quarterback would you rather have for 2020?
I want to see what Jared Goff we get.
Let's put Dak on there.
yeah, you got me on that one. You know how much I like Goff.
I love Goff.
I like Goff a lot, and in the hands
He's
of
got a big year coming up. He's
I
got
know, in
This is it.
the hands of McVay, I like
Kyler Murray, Kirk
They got the-
Cousins.
the
Who's
state-
the minute Prescott gets paid. Look out
Oh,
the
yeah.
whole business of how overpaid he is and how.
Open those floodgates up.
Who's the
Please.
fourth QB I can put on here that they're all kind of the same?
Right.
Carson Wentz. Which QB would you rather have for 2020? Dak, Kyler Murray, Cousins, and Carson Wentz? Since they're all kind of the same.
Sure.
That's a tough
And
one.
don't respond to me, people, with Mahomes. I get it. He's not on the list. I hate when people do that. You give them options
and
and
then
then
they
they
go,
respond
yeah.
with something that's not an option. We're not talking about them.
It's like best Godfather movie. You don't put 3 down.
Big Twitter pet peeve. for
Anything
me.
else you want to get off your chest
Big
before we get
Twitter,
to Florio?
big
right, though.
Twitter pet peeve
Okay.
for me.
He's right, though.
Okay, our friends at NBCSN are going to return in a matter of moments. We take your phone calls at 844-204-RICH. Roger Bennett, Greg Sankey of the SEC, and Kevin Bacon, all still to come. Welcome back to the Rich Eisen Show, not just to our listeners and viewers, those who are also on hold at 844-204-RICH, which is the number to dial here on this Monday, but also to the founder of Pro Football Talk, whose show we follow on the NBCSN schedule every single weekday. He is none other than Mike Florio. How are you, Michael?
Hey, Rich, how are you, pal?
Hanging in there. Hope you had a good Father's Day weekend.
Yep, same to you.
Fantastic. Thank you. Greatly appreciate it. So is Dak going to put his signature on that piece of paper today? from what
Yeah,
you're
it
hearing?
sure sounds that way. And it's kind of a surprise because he had been so dug in, and the impression that we've gotten is he wants his long-term contract by July 15, and if they don't give it to him, he's potentially going to stay away from training camp and preseason. But the bottom line is quarterbacks got to be ready to go. And in his mind, this is a contract year just like last year was. Last year was a contract year for $2 million. This year's a contract year for $31.4 million, but it's still a contract year, and he needs to have a good year. He's got a new coach. He's got a new approach. He's got a new everything that he's got to get up to speed with. Now, a lot of same teammates, obviously, same offensive coordinator, but he needs to be ready to go. He's not plug and play like a Le'Veon Bell in 2017. He's the guy who needs to be there, and it also takes off the table the very, very, very slim possibility that the Cowboys would change their mind about rescinding the franchise tender and making him a free agent at a time when everyone's depth chart is set and everyone's budget's been turned upside down.
So why hasn't there been a deal? Is it just a back-end fourth, fifth year? Is it COVID-19 messing potentially with future caps and the Cowboys trying to figure out what that might be before they sign him? What do you think this is?
Well, the
Mike?
easiest impediment, Rich, is that it's a deadline-driven business and the deadline is July 15th.
Right.
And if anybody moves toward their bottom line now, what happens is you're going to get squeezed off of it when it comes time to figure out exactly how much you're going to pay. And if here's my bottom line, well, your bottom line today is going to become your bottom line plus something else on July 14th. So that's part of it. But here's what it comes down to: Dak's got $31.4 million in hand once he signs the franchise tender. Next year, he's in line for a 20% raise if they tag him again. That's $37.68 million. That's $69.08 million combined for 2 years, plus the year 3. What do? transition tag, $45 million. Franchise tag, $54 million for 1 year. Or let him walk away like Kirk Cousins in Washington from a couple of years ago. What do you do? And from Dak's perspective, they need to offer him something that will cause him to say, I'll trade in this bird in the hand for whatever it is that you're offering me. And only Dak knows what the offer is going to be to require him to say, okay, I'll give up my chance to go year to year and make nearly $70 million and potentially force my way to free agency in just 2 years.
So the Cousins route, the Kirk Cousins path to 9 figures in the bank, basically, is what you're saying.
Exactly. And the open market. I mean, look, people get mad at Dak for not taking whatever the Cowboys want to pay him, but the Cowboys have taken full advantage of all rights they have under the CBA. They paid him for 4 years as a fourth-round draft pick, and last year he made $2 million. They didn't give him an extension that he found acceptable. He played that year with the injury risk, and now he's in a spot where they've chosen to apply the franchise tag. They've chosen to apply the exclusive level of the franchise tag at $31.4 million, $5 or $4 million more than what the non-exclusive level would have been. And so now he has rights in the face of that. And his biggest right at this point is to say, I'll take 31.4 now, I'll take 37.68 next year, and then you're going to have to make one hell of a decision in 2022.
Mike Florio here on the Rich Eisen Show. Why does Jerry Jones always do this late with everybody? What's the deal here?
Here's what I think. I think that Jerry believes that when the time comes to throw his arm around a guy, and remember this bubbled up last year with Ezekiel Elliott,
Sure.
And there was talk of how they did it with Des Bryant, how they'll try to negotiate directly with the player, even though they're not supposed to negotiate directly with a player who's represented by an NFLPA-certified agent. It happens. And I think they believe that, at the appropriate time, they're going to get Dak to take less than what he otherwise is entitled to. And, they got that with Tony Romo, who was undrafted, who wasn't supposed to be in the NFL at all. He took less than maybe he could have gotten if he had played it out. And I think they've been stunned, big picture, by the fact that Dak didn't take whatever they offered last year before he entered the last year of his contract. There's a Joe Flacco vibe to all of this. Remember, even though Flacco won the Super Bowl and was the MVP and was able to leverage that into the biggest contract ever signed by any quarterback at the time, but he bet on himself. He said no thanks to the offer that the Ravens made in August of 2012, and he won. And even though the Cowboys were 8-8 last year, Dak did the same thing, and Dak won. And here he is with $31.4 million in hand, which is a nice raise over the $2 million he made last year.
Mike Florio here on the Rich Eisen Show from Pro Football Talk and NBC Sports. Asking the poll question, Chris. This is as he traffics in the same world as Sports Talk.
Okay, Mike, you were on the line when we were hashing this out. Which QB would you rather have this coming season? Dak, Kyler Murray, Kirk Cousins, Carson Wentz?
For this season, for one season only,
Mm-hmm.
I'd rather have Kyler Murray, and here's why. And I heard you guys talking about this, and this is something that I've said. In 2017, we saw Carson Wentz in his second year take the NFL by storm until he suffered the ACL injury against the Rams in December. 2018, Patrick Mahomes in his second year took the NFL by storm. 2019, Lamar Jackson in his second year took the NFL by storm. I think Kyler Murray is going to be that guy this year. And I know it's a difficult division, but I guess if you give me the chance to get him out of the NFC West, he's even more attractive. If you get him in any other division in the league, he's the guy I want as my quarterback because I think he's going to explode this year.
I agree with you. I totally agree with you. And it's amazing the conversation, should he play or should he go to baseball? Like that was actually a real conversation that was had
in America. Top 10
America.
Draft pick. I mean, that's the thing. We've seen guys who have had the ability maybe to make it in another sport and be really good in one. This guy had the potential to be really good in two different sports. And he's shorter than me, which makes me like him even more. Somebody in the sport is shorter than me. It's wonderful.
And he's got a quarterback coach situation where they're plugged in, and DeAndre Hopkins being added to that mix. I'm thinking there's going to be a very large Arizona bandwagon as the league year gets closer. And in that front, I guess we should turn to that conversation right now. Mike, what are you hearing about the NFL and the conversations about the 2020 season as we're sitting here right now on the backside of the longest day of the year?
Well, it's funny, Rich. If we pay attention to what's out there publicly, there's enough little pieces that you can string together the popcorn and come to the conclusion it's going to be very difficult to play NFL football this year when we see that X number of Clemson players have tested positive, and LSU, and there's an outbreak here, and they shut down this program, and they shut down that program. And then also, I don't feel like there's a true consensus yet between the league and the union as to what they're agreeing to, and the clock is ticking on reaching an agreement on what's going to happen in training camp and beyond. But I circled back with someone who told me in early May that there is an extremely small chance there won't be an NFL season this year. And I felt compelled to circle back because based on everything that had happened last week, I'm thinking, man, this doesn't look as promising as I thought it was supposed to look. But I was told the league is still highly optimistic the games will be played. There's less optimism that fans will be in the stands than there was in early May, but the bulk of the money comes from televising the games, and they continue to be very optimistic. One of the issues is that they believe very strongly that when you're on a football field, when you're not in a confined space, the droplets don't linger the way that they do indoors. Mm-hmm. And the speculation is the outbreak at Clemson, the 23 positives, probably a weight room thing where you got the heavy air, you got guys exhaling, you got other guys right there, and their eyes and their noses can be invaded by the droplets. And I think that is the difference. So the NFL planning very extreme measures to keep people apart indoors. And then when we cross the water's edge to the football field, even though there's no way to socially distance and play football, like Sean McVay said last week, rightly so, there's less of a concern of infection because it's either outdoors or under a giant roof where those droplets can dissipate in a way that they can't inside.
So it's interesting how you mentioned Mike Florio here on the Rich Eisen Show. It's interesting how you mentioned that revenue is generated by the showing of the games, not the showing up to the games. A complete opposite from what it sounds like from Major League Baseball and the continuing argument that it has with its Players Association right now. So what might be between now and the beginning of a season be part of the conversation between the NFL and its Players Association that throws some sort of a speed bump into the plan of having a season? What are you seeing? Is there anything?
There was an idea. Well, now, look, if they're completely wrong about how the virus operates and there's outbreak after outbreak in training camps and they just don't have the bodies that can come in and take the places of the players, and this is different from the replacements in 1987 during the strike because, if you've got half of your starting lineup wiped out because they've tested positive, even if they're asymptomatic, they're quarantined for 2 or 3 weeks, you go get a left guard who's been sitting on the couch eating pork rinds and watching bowling, and he's the only guy out there, and you put him next to your left tackle who you're paying $17 million a year to, you're putting that left tackle at risk if you just bring this guy in out of nowhere. And one thing I've been saying, Rich, is they need to consider doing what the XFL did with a ninth team of guys who were not attached to any one team, but they were kept in shape. They were coached, they were practicing, and they were ready to go. And the NFL almost needs to have 2, 3, or 4 of those rosters out there. If there is an outbreak, it's not just like call a guy up and get him in here, regardless of what kind of shape he may be in. It's we have guys who are ready to plug in, and they're not going to compromise the health of the guys next to him. So that's the kind of thing that can make it fall apart. And then from the league and the union standpoint, if the league tries to get money back from the players and the players dig in and say no, that could create an impasse. I don't think it's going to get to that point, though. I think at the end of the day, they'll work out the money. I think at the end of the day, the players have no obligation to say anything other than we have our contracts for this year. Next year is where the conversation gets interesting as to what the salary cap will be in light of what the impact on the cap is as a result of this year's reduced revenue.
Yeah, I mean, again, and that kind of brings us back full circle to the Dak Prescott conversation, because if the Cowboys just say, all right, playing the franchise tag, maybe they're hoping by July 15th there'll be a better idea if there is a deal about how to make sure the 21 and the 22 and 23 cap is handled. So all the teams that planned out their contracts expecting a rising cap, they don't get totally hamstrung and screwed, quite honestly. So we'll see how that all works out. Is there anything else that's going on in the NFL that is taking up so much of the oxygen? Is it what's going on off the field right now, Mike? I mean, what do we discuss, and at what point will we find out, do you think, a date certain by which people are going to be reporting?
I think that we'll know at some point not long after the 4th of July. And, it's time for some agreements to be reached between the league and the union. It's time for the players to understand what's going to be expected of them. And I've heard talk of the possibility of giving players a chance to opt out if they're just not comfortable this year for whatever reason. If they're not comfortable being in that environment, they don't want to potentially infect family members, or they have prior health conditions like a Patrick Peterson who's got diabetes, James Conner who fought cancer. There may be guys who say, I don't want to do this. There may be coaches who say, I don't want to do it. And I think there's going to be an allowance for those people who aren't comfortable going forward in this climate. That's going to be part of it. But we're getting closer and closer, Rich, 5-6 weeks away. If they're going to open training camp on time, some agreements need to be made and announced. And I think that they need to let the rest of us know that, if there is a high degree of optimism behind the curtain that the season's going to go forward, we need to start seeing some of the fruits of that so we can all say, yes, there will be football this year instead of worrying about it for the next 3 months.
I'm just wondering again, Mike, that is there a possibility? I mean, now that the NBA has created their bubble world, we're hearing about the ability to, turn the magic ring that people who go and get their passports to fun in Disney World to use to open up their doors of their hotel rooms to actually add a component to it that can give you an idea if you've got a symptom for COVID-19. I'm just wondering if the NFL, they have to, with all their money and influence and I guess the amount of time that they've had of run up, some sort of technology that we're unaware of that maybe even the NBA could give a test run in July to allow for better testing, better tracing, better everything to allow for a season to happen. I'm just wondering, are you hearing anything about that?
Oh, yeah, and look, I was told back in early May, and this was the reason why I was told that there's an extremely small chance that the season won't happen. There's a belief that by August and September, there will be rapid response testing, reliable testing, accurate testing. And I've always envisioned, Rich, when you're talking about the petri dish that is an NFL locker room, now there is a way to socially distance, but once you're in the building and the virus is in the building, that's a problem. Once you're on the field and the virus is on the field, that's a problem. And I've always envisioned that there would be basically an airlock where you go in, you take a test, whether it's a saliva test or a finger prick, and 5 minutes later you know whether or not you're positive. And if you're negative, you go in, and if you're positive, you get put in quarantine, and that person never gets through. And I think the duty to the communities includes testing them on the way out as well. So you don't have someone who was negative when they walked in, they're positive walking out, and you're sending them back out to the community without knowing that they're positive. And I was led to believe that the testing will be so prevalent by August or September that they'll be able to do that and test them every day. I've heard other things suggesting they're not going to test them every day, and I look at that and I say, how can you not test every day? And I know there's practicalities involved and expenses involved, but I think that's one of the key components. If you're going to have guys out on a football field sweating and bleeding and, breathing over each other for 3 hours at a time, you need to be certain that anybody who has access to that space is negative.
All right, what else? What's going on in your world? You got your pod, right? You got the Daily Show. You got it all working.
We just keep cranking. We keep cranking, and we keep looking for what's next. And even though there isn't a whole lot of football news because we didn't have an off-season program, we watch what's next. And watch this. After July 15, the next guy to watch is Deshaun Watson. And I'm told that he wants a 3-year extension on the 2 years that he has left with the Texans, and that he's likely to get it. They gave Larry Tunsil a 3-year extension. Usually teams don't do extensions that short. So I think the dominoes are going to go Prescott, then Watson, then Mahomes. And even if Prescott doesn't do a deal, I think Watson wants to wait to see what Prescott does, because I think he's going to take Prescott's deal and say, give me that plus X on top of it. And then Mahomes is going to be the one that just blows everyone out of the water, and I think that thing's coming before the season starts, too.
You know what? It would be smart to do it. It would be smart to do it, and that's why it would be smart for the Joneses to figure it out with Dak now before a new ceiling is set that becomes his floor. So what are the numbers you're hearing for Watson and Mahomes then?
Well, I think Mahomes, we've always heard $40 million or more per year. Now, that becomes complicated because when you talk about $40 million in new money, a 5-year, $200 million extension, that gets added to his 2 existing years, and it ends up being a lot less than $40 million a year. So there's different ways to look at these deals. But I think in terms of new money, it's going to be Dak around 35, Watson around 38, Mahomes around 40 or maybe more. And possibly with Mahomes, Rich, something that I've been advocating for a while and that different players have tried to get but haven't been able to. Mahomes needs to have a set salary or a percentage of the salary cap, whichever is greater. So he's protected against explosions in the cap that make his pay relative to other quarterbacks, relative to other players, seem less. Whether it's 18%, 17%, it's perfectly permissible under the CBA. The teams have resisted it, and if anybody's going to get it, it's Patrick Mahomes.
So you become an 18%er, you know? That's what you're saying, like a 20%er.
Exactly.
Wow. Mike, thanks for the time.
In this situation, it's better to be an 18%er than a 1%er.
Well, it certainly puts you in a different bracket, no doubt about that. Thanks for the call, Mike. Appreciate it.
All right, see you, Rich.
You got it. That's Mike Florio at Pro Football Talk. Get it done now if you're down. I mean, that's why you got it done. That's why the Eagles got it done with Wentz. And that's why the Rams got it done with Goff.
And like we said, the Jimmy G deal looks like a steal now.
It's a steal, an absolute steal, $25 million. Mahomes is like telling the Hunt family, I want a piece of the cap. And they have every right as an NFL owner to say nobody else is doing that. We're not setting a precedent. But they also have every reason to basically tell this kid, you are a precedence breaker. Clearly, we didn't have a home AFC championship game in half a century, and then we had 2 in a row. We hadn't won a Super Bowl since they were matriculating the boys down the field, and now we do. Talk about setting a precedence.
And it's not like hyperbole to say this dude could break every record.
Right, and so if he's doing that, and you could then say to Dak, well, you didn't do what Mahomes did, and he would have every right to say, well, I didn't have Andy Reid, and I know you were trying to build a roster, but it wasn't the same as what they were doing in Kansas City, and it's my turn, and that's normally the precedents too. The NFL, get it done. Now then, one other thing before we take a break here. More of your phone calls on the other side at 844-204-RICH. One thing that Florio did bring up was giving people an out, a pass. An ability to basically say, I want out on 2020 based on COVID-19. So that does not include Jamal Adams saying he wants out from the Jets. And I want to hit on that.
I mean, have you heard from Jamal?
I want to hit out on that.
Yet?
I want to hit on that. Because everybody's covering this like Adams is gone. Jets are going to trade him. Everybody wants a piece of Jamal Adams. I have a particular piece of my mind I want to deliver on that front. That's next on The Rich Eisen Show here on NBCSN and more.
The Sports Judge.
He was nonstop texting, Instagramming, live streaming.
Do you have anything to add?
Real fans, real cases. And Rich Eisen settles all scores as the Sports Judge.
This is the plaintiff, Brittany Simmons. She went on a date to a Dodgers game and says it turned into the worst night of her life. She wants to be compensated for the price of her ticket and the money she spent on concessions. This is the defendant, Alan Langhorne. He says he has absolutely no idea what Brittany is talking about. In fact, Alan says that he had the time of his life at the game, and he has the evidence to prove it.
All rise. Here comes the judge.
Litigants are ready for the next case, sir.
This appears to be a case of a date night gone bad. Ms. Simmons, you start first. What's your recollection of the night in question?
Your Honor, from the time I picked him up until the time I dropped him off, he was nonstop texting, Instagramming, live streaming. I don't think he took his eyes off his phone once.
Mr. Langhorne, I think I already know the answer to this question, but could that be possible?
No way. He said that? That's crazy.
Mr. Langhorne.
Yes?
Right here.
Oh!
Do you see what I mean?
Hi.
He probably doesn't even know who won the game.
Mr. Langhorne, do you know the final score of the game that night?
Of course I know the score of what the game was. Siri, what was the score between the Dodgers and the Angels?
The Angels narrowly defeated the Dodgers in the Freeway Series by a score of 5-3 on June 11th.
Ms. Simmons, that is the accurate final score. Do you have anything to add about this evening?
Sure. To top it off, a foul ball fell right at his feet, but he had his nose in the phone, so the guy next to him got it.
Mr. Langhorn, was the foul ball really that close to you?
Your Honor, do you mind if I live feed my answer?
Live feed?
Yeah.
The proceedings here in the sports judge chambers?
Yeah.
How many followers do you have?
100,000.
100,000?
100,000.
Ms. Simmons, how many followers do you have on Instagram?
50?
1,000?
Just 50?
It's 50. Bailiff, bring the phone to me. Are we live right now?
Oh, yes.
Wow, you do have following. Okay, here's my verdict. Despite your large following, sir, I'm still going to rule in favor of Ms. Simmons, but only for the cost of the ticket. As far as the concessions that you incurred on that night, I'm going to waive that as long as you tag the sports judge.
Wait, what? That's more than the cost of the ticket. The guy had 6 beers.
All I can say is in the 21st century, if you want to come to the sports judge with a following of 50, you're lucky to just get the ticket. I got to get it. Okay, welcome back to the Rich Eisen Show, 844-204-RICH. Number to dial. We'll take some calls in a second. What's our poll question results as they currently stand over there, Christopher?
All right, we're looking at quarterbacks for 2020 because we were talking about Dak Prescott. Who would you rather have this coming season? Dak, Kyler Murray, your pick for top 3 MVP, Rich. Kirk Cousins and Carson Wentz. Mike Florio said he would rather have Kyler Murray this fall. He's in the majority. 41% agree with him. 26% Carson Wentz, 21% Dak Prescott, 11% Kirk Cousins.
All right. Everybody's jumping. How about that? How about me being on the Kyler Murray train before so many other people are on the Kyler Murray train? I like the Kyler Murray train.
You were all over it. I mean, look, and I liked Mike Florio's point about quarterbacks in their second year recently who have kind of tore up the league. Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes, Carson Wentz, and Kyler Murray fits the bill. Got a lot of new weapons there in Arizona. We'll see what happens.
Yes. So, look, my buddy Dan Patrick said on his show that the Jets are not a team of national interest. Did you hear that?
Well, he may be correct.
He is not wrong.
Yeah.
He's not wrong. So when I talk about this on a national show, hold on a minute. We're on our YouTube stream. Nate, international show. Again, Roger Bennett's coming on. I mean, we're going to have an international flavor coming up. It's because this is my team. This is the team I grew up with. And also in the case of this story, I mean, it's not like they're thinking of firing their coach, or thinking of doing this, thinking of doing that. This story is a national story because of the feeding frenzy that I'm seeing in fan bases across the nation, the Twitterverse. And then because, look, I understand we all don't want to talk about the virus in a sports world show because we get too much of the real world there. But unfortunately, the virus is affecting matters, as we all know. So I get it that there's not much to talk about. So when Jamal Adams says he wants out on an Instagram feed in a very cryptic way, and then it comes back that the agent is asking for a trade from the Jets, then we're all seeing everybody saying, well, the Jets are going to have a problem with Jamal Adams. Now all of a sudden I hear from the Ravens fans and the Patriots fans and every single fan. I'll take the Cowboy fans. Oh, my God. Oh, my God. And then everybody in the media, of which I'm a part, but many of my colleagues and friends, covering this like it's a real story. And like the Jets are going to trade Jamal Adams. First of all, Jamal Adams is not allowed to leave the Jets until he checks with me and or Gary Vaynerchuk first. And he has yet to do that. Okay?
Confirmed? You haven't heard from him?
The Prez may not even understand that that's part of his world, but it's true. That's number one. Number two, The Jets have 2 years of contractual control left on him.
Oh, yeah.
This year and the next. And they can also do something with his contract. I don't want to get too deep into it. That doesn't terribly affect their salary cap this year and next either. There are ways to go here. And the reason why everybody... Do you have my favorite soundbite I hate for you to keep playing? From the old days?
I'm looking.
Okay.
I gotta get it. Hold on.
Get it ready. Because you got it right, Chris. You know what I'm talking
I know
about.
what you're talking about.
We've done this long enough.
Yeah.
The reason why everybody covers it like it's a real thing, and all the fans of their favorite teams think they've got Jamal Adams now coming on their team, because they think the Jets are going to screw it up. Because they got 2 years of contractual control left on him. They're going to forget that, and they're going to panic, and they're going to trade him. Well, Joe Douglas is not John Izek.
I'm the general manager of the New York Jets.
Oh,
Ultimately, I'm responsible for the performance of our team.
Isn't going to pull a Darrelle Revis on the situation. Stop it. It's not going to happen. Don Bowie, do you have the moment that everybody went? This went viral. This went viral. Jamal Adams driving around, and a fan screaming out to Jamal Adams, "Roll it!"
What's up, bro? Hey, what's up, bro? What's up with you? Hey, you coming to Dallas? Hey, man, I'm trying, bro.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh.
I'm trying.
Get your damn act together.
So I'm going to say this, because that feeds the frenzy of Jets have a problem with Jamal Adams. Jets have a problem with Jamal Adams. Jets do have a problem with Jamal Adams. They have to pay Jamal Adams. They should pay Jamal Adams. He's that good. All right? I know they got a problem with him. They got 2 years of contractual control. They have the hand, and I don't want them to use it. I want everyone to be happy. They should pay Jamal Adams. So I will say this to you, Chris, you Patriot fans that think he's coming here and you don't understand. If you do get a transformational Jet secondary player, he's got to be parked somewhere first before you get him in New England.
Okay,
All right?
okay, I get it.
And Ravens fans, can you imagine him next to Earl Thomas? Sure.
No, I can't imagine. Don't want to imagine that.
Go ahead and imagine it, and then let it go, because it's not happening. And in particular, to the fan that asked Jamal about the Cowboys. And I'm looking in the direction of our grand
was it TJ?
social media grand maester, TJ Jefferson, Dallas Cowboy fan, the resident Cowboy fan of this organization. I say to you, Cowboy fans, you in particular are not getting Jamal Adams.
Settle down just a little bit.
Thank you. You in particular are not getting him because unless Jerry kicks over a rock and finds enough salary cap space, he ain't coming. And Dak's already getting a huge amount of pie. You're not getting him. Forget him. Forget him. And I guess that goes to Jamal, too. You've got my number, Jamal. You got to call me first to check with me. And I say no. It's amazing how these stories, you're like, Jets have a problem with Jamal Adams. Jets are going to screw it up. Yeah, I know that's their history. But everything that I've been told, I haven't spoken to Joe Douglas yet. He hasn't checked with me at all.
This takes a nice chunk out of the pie.
Thank you.
I haven't heard that one in a while.
He's forgotten that one. Kicked that over the Rich Eisen show drop rock. But everybody covers it like the Jets don't have, like the Jets got to get rid of him. Oh, my God, Jamal Adams might hold out on his Zoom meeting. Oh, my God. He might not Zoom in or Microsoft Team in or whatever the hell it is. He might not Google Friend in. Oh, my gosh. Is that what's going to happen?
Video conference, I think we can go.
He holds out. Oh, my gosh. What's going to happen? I hope he doesn't. They should pay him. It's amazing what passes is. I didn't even want to bring it up with Florio because you know what he would have said? They have a contract for this year,
right?
And they got a contract for next. So what's the point? I didn't even want to bring it up. And maybe, you remember Julio Jones held out. We know Zeke went off to Cabo. Ask Melvin Gordon how it all worked out. Apparently he wants to get as much money as, what? Is it Kareem Jackson? Is that the guy he's trying to get paid? Like, apparently that's what he wants. He wants $14.5 million a year. Well, the Jets should figure that out.
He's due to make 3.5 this
It's
season.
absurd. It's not right. And I don't blame him. Eddie Jackson, pardon me, $14.6 million. That's what the Bears' Eddie Jackson is being made. And Landon Collins. Oh, my God. Dan Snyder just went, crazy, like a sailor on shore leave with him. and of course now everybody wants to get paid like Landon Collins. I'm sorry. I don't understand why everybody's just like the Jets are going to screw it up. I can envision Jamal Adams on my team, and my final answer to that is no.
Like Mark Wahlberg on The Perfect Storm.
Sorry. That was a perfect storm. Where Dave Gettleman tells Landon Collins beat it, and then somebody's so dying to get him in division, they pay him like honestly. No. Jamal Adams is not coming to your town. That's the headline. Unfortunately, he may not be coming to East Rutherford, New Jersey either. We'll deal with that when the time comes. Co-host of Men in Blazers, Roger Bennett, the very funny and talented and handsome Roger Bennett when we come back. And Greg Sankey of the SEC, too.
Hey everybody, this is Adam Chudwin, call screener for The Rich Eisen Show. I grew up in the Chicagoland area in the 90s and was able to witness the Bulls dynasty up close and in person, and here's my story. Look to your right to the kid staring at Scottie Pippen wearing that hat that looks like a basketball. That was me at 10 years old. I don't know what I was thinking with that hat. A lot of us had questionable fashion choices in the 90s, but you couldn't question my passion for the Chicago Bulls. For the Bulls' second three-peat, my dad had a hookup for incredible seats right next to the Bulls bench. It was awesome. We would go to 2 or 3 games a year, and all of these pictures are pictures my dad took from our seats. If you don't know, Dennis Rodman used to give his jersey away to a fan after every game. So for a game I was going to, my mom thought of an idea to get Dennis's attention. She went to Victoria's Secret and bought a black and red bra for me to wave around at the game, and then she wrote this sign for me to hold. Yeah, this really happened. So I went to the game, bra in one hand, sign in the other, and people were loving it. Drunk dudes were giving me high fives, women were asking to take pictures with me. I was the toast of the United Center that day. My sign was even written about in Sports Illustrated. Around halftime of the game, a reporter from CBS came up to me and asked if he could interview me. So I was on the local 10 o'clock news later that night, and a lot of my friends saw it. Unfortunately, I ended up not getting the jersey from Dennis, but the interview ended up being a great clip for the video they showed of me at my bar mitzvah. When I think back to the dynasty years, I realize how much joy the Bulls gave to my friends and family. Bulls games were a huge event, and if we weren't going to the game, we were all gathered around the living room to watch together. They made us proud to be from Chicago. It was so fun. I remember in 1998, my dad telling me to appreciate what was happening and savor the moment, because this type of team happens once in a lifetime. And he was right. There will never be a basketball team like that again. The Bulls were a worldwide phenomenon, but I was right there in Chicago to witness greatness in person, and that was my last dance.